Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaraचार्य-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam Om Sahana-Vavatu Sahana-Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Tanmay, could you please chant from the 14th verse till the end of the text, please?
Yada sarve pramuchyante
Yada sarve
pramuchyante
कामायेस्य हृदयश्रिताः अथ मर्त्यो मृतो भवति अत्र ब्रह्म समश्नुते यदा सर्वे प्रविद्यन्ते हृदयस्येह ग्रन्थयः अथ मर्त्यो मृतो भवति एतावद्भ्यनुशासनम् शतं चैकाच हृदयस्य नाड्यः तासां मूर्धानम् अभिनिसृतैका तयोर्ध्वमायन्नमृतत्वमेति विश्वङ्गन्या उत्क्रमणे भवन्ति अंगुष्ठमात्रः पुरुषोऽन्तरात्मा सदा जनानां हृदये सन्निविष्टः त्वं स्वाच्छरीरात् प्रवृहेत कुञ्जादिवेशिकान् धैर्येण तं विद्याच्छुक्रममृतम् विद्याच्छुक्रममृतमिति मृत्युप्रोक्तान्नचिकेतोऽथ लब्ध्वा विद्यामेतां योगविधिं च कृत्स्नम् ब्रह्म प्राप्तो विरजो भूद्मृत्युः मृत्युः अन्योप्येवं यो विदध्यात्ममेव ॐ तत्सत् इति कठोपनिषत् सम्पूर्णम्
Uti Kathopanishad
ॐ
Sampurnam.
तत्सदिति कथोपनिषत्पूर्णं पूर्णम्
Thank you, Tanmay. So, look at the words. Yada sarve kamaha, when all the desires, and where are the desires? Asya hridi ye shritaha, which are based in the heart. Pramuchyate, when they are diluted, when they are worn off. Then, athaha, then, mrityaha. So, mrityaha is the mortal being, the jiva. Atha mrityaha, amritaha bhavati. Then the mortal jiva becomes the immortal Brahman. And that is said, samushnate brahmaha. He attains Brahman atra, here itself. So, now we are coming to the jnana phalam. What is the benefit of this knowledge? And so here he says all the desires have been weaned off, have dropped off. So moksha here is being defined as sarva kama nivrittihi, as the destruction or the freedom from all desires. And you have to take the reverse. Wherever there are desires, binding desires, there is samsara. Because every desire is ultimately what? It's an expression of my incompleteness, of my feeling of apurnatvam, that I am incomplete. And that is why I have a desire. I look at an object which I do not have, which I do not possess. And I feel that if I possess that object, I will be complete. And if I already am complete, if I am already am jivan muktaha, then I can see the object, of course. Nobody says I should not look at the object. But I need not possess that object. I am just as happy having the object and not having the object. So I can look at it and walk off. So moksha here is being defined as nishkamatvam, the absence of desires, because when I am purnaha, when I am complete, nothing is away from me. Everything is within me only. And therefore, Brahma Jnanam, when we say the acquisition of Brahma Jnanam, is nothing but the acquisition of completeness. Purnatvam praptihi is Brahma Jnana. Therefore, he says, Yada sarve pramuchyante. When all the desires which are born from the feeling that I am incomplete, when they go away, then it is called moksha. So this is a very beautiful definition of a desire. Desire is born from apurnatva, right? And when he says the desires go away, we have to remember that desires are of two types: binding desires and non-binding desires. And when he says when the desires are gone, he is talking about binding desires are gone. Because when binding desires are gone, then whether the desire is fulfilled or unfulfilled, it makes no difference to me. So when the fulfillment or non-fulfillment of the desire does not affect me, then it becomes a non-binding desire. So the primary goal here is that I should not consider my happiness as dependent upon the fulfillment of some desire or the other. It is okay to have desires, but the fulfillment or non-fulfillment of that desire should not be affecting me at all. Because I have discovered that purnatvam, that completeness, is my real nature. And that is why ataha, therefore, martyaha, the samsari, amritaha bhavanti, becomes immortal, goes beyond samsaraha. Atra brahma ashnute. The atra is very important. Atra means here itself, where in this world, while living, while possessing a body, Brahma ashnute, he discovers that I am Brahman. So attaining Brahman is a figurative usage of words. Attaining Brahman has to be understood as dropping the idea that I am a jivaha. And Shankara adds, why does this happen? Mrityo vinashat, because of the destruction of kama, etc., mrityu, etc. So for him, kama is equivalent to mrityu. He says Mrityu Vinashat, because of the destruction of death, and death being equated to Kamaha. Why? Because Kamaha is the cause of travel after death, is the cause of rebirth. And therefore, for the person who has dropped binding desires, there will be no travel at all. And Shankaracharya gives a beautiful example. He says, Pradeepa Nivaranavat, like a flame of the candle which is extinguished. That flame merges into the fire principle when it's extinguished. The flame is not destroyed. It simply merges back into its original source, the fire principle. Why is flame not destroyed? Because flame is matter. Of course, the flame example here is limited to show that something can be destroyed like the flame without leaving any residue at all. That's the beauty of that flame example. When the flame goes out or is destroyed, there is no residue left of the flame. And therefore, Shankara says, such a person, free from all bondages, Brahma Samashnute, Jivatma gains Brahman. And he adds, the Samashnute word is translated, the literal meaning is gains or attains. And to show that there is no attaining, or there is no gaining, or there is no travel required, Shankara adds, Brahmaiva bhavati iti arthaha. Samushnata means that he becomes Brahman. He discovers that he is Brahman. This is the meaning. You cannot even say becomes Brahman, because you already are Brahman. So correct understanding is that he discovers that I have been, I am, and I will be Brahman. Now look at the 15th mantra. So he says, Yada Sarve. Now you have to rearrange the words a bit. Yada Sarve Granthayaha, the last word of the first line. Yada Sarve Granthayaha Hridyasya Prabhidyante. So when Sarve Granthayaha, Yada when Sarve Granthayaha, all the knots. And where are the knots? Hridyasya, of the heart. The knots found in the heart, prabidhyante, when they are completely destroyed. And where? Iha, here itself, in this world while living. Then athamartyaha amritaha bhavati, a repetition of the earlier mantra. Then the mortal jiva becomes immortal. And here Yamraj says, etavathi anushasanam. This much alone, etavathi. This much alone is the teaching. So this mantra is a expansion, a clarification on the previous mantra. So he is saying that as long as you think that you are a jiva, so in Shastric language, as long as jiva bhava continues, the feeling that I am a jiva bhava continues, apurnatvam, the feeling of incompleteness will always be there. Because jiva as an individual jiva can never be infinite. He will always be finite. And therefore, Purnatvam has to come when I understand that I am no individual at all. How does this Purnatvam come to the Jnani? How the binding desires are dropped? We have to hand over the body-mind complex to Easwara. Remember that when I say jiva, I am the RC. The jiva is the RC, which has two integral components. The RM, which is the body, mind, sense complex, and the OC, which is the original consciousness. Now, what do? As a RC, I hand back the RM. Once the RM is handed back, what happens? What remains is the OC. And therefore, when I hand back my RM, the body, mind, sense complex, to Easwara, I am saying basically that this body-mind complex does not belong to me. I am not the owner of that body-mind complex. This is the disidentification with the body. So now, after handing back that body to Easwara, what am I? I am only a caretaker. I am a trustee, not an owner. But even after handing it over, I will exist not as the Anatma. I will exist as the OC. As Atma. And as Atma, I have no complaints at all. The complaints about Apurnatvam belongs to whom? Belongs to the RC, because the RC is mixed up, OC mixed up with the RM. And once I have segregated the RM from the OC through this jnanam, all this jnanam is about what? About understanding that I am the OC and not the RM. And the RC is a fictitious entity which is available here only because of the RM. So once I am handing back the RM to Easwara, I am saying, hey Lord, take it over because this is not really mine, it is yours. After that, how do I exist? I exist only as OC because RM goes wherever the RM goes, the RC also goes. And when I'm existing as the OC, the Atma, I am Purnaha. Where is the question of any complaint at all? So here he puts that in a different language. He says, Yada sarve granthayah. When all the knots are destroyed. So these knots are, there are 5 knots in our heart. Okay. So which are the cause of samsara. So 2 knots belong to ahankara and 3 knots belong to mamakara. So whenever we say granthayah, we are talking about ahankara, mamakara knots. And there are 5 in number. 2 are ahankara and 3 are mamakara. The ahankara knots are what? My body and my mind. That is the ahankara, mind, right? And the other is, so there is my and mine. So my body, my mind is ahankara. My profession, my family, my possessions. These 3 are mamakara. Totally 5 knots. Ahankara is my body, my mind. Mamakara is mine, my possession, my profession, my family. What happens to them? Prabhadyante. They are snapped. There is no physical snapping here. You do not break your relationships with your family. But it's an understanding that this RM belongs to Easwara alone. And since all relationships, basically any relationship centers around the RM only. The OC has no relationships. And the RM, I am handing it back to Easwara, as I said. And therefore, I remain as what? Asanga Atma. When Iha. Shankara says, Iha is equal to Jivita Eva, when the body is still alive. So when these 5 knots are dropped, the attitude of being a Jiva Bhava gets dropped. Of course, it doesn't mean that because I drop the Ahankara, I neglect the body and the mind. Why? Because they are Ishvara's property. I am now the caretaker and therefore I have to take as much care of Ishvara's property as my own. But what goes is the attachment. I am taking now care of the whole thing now as a caretaker, the trustee, not as the owner. And so he says, Athamartyaha bhavati amritaha. Therefore, this mortal jiva becomes immortal. He attains jivan mukti. Etadvaihi anushashanam. This alone is the teaching. So Shankara adds here a couple of things. He says these knots are in the form of thoughts of avidya. Avidya pratyaya. Thoughts of avidya. Thoughts based, arising out of avidya. And he adds, what are these thoughts? They are in the form of aham idam shariram. I am this body. That is ahankara. Then mamam idam dhanam. This wealth is mine. This is mamakara. Then sukhi dukhi aham. I am happy. I am unhappy. These are all thoughts arising out of the ignorance, the ajnanam. So that's why he says avidya pratyaya. Shankara's comments are to the point, illustrating exactly where they are. Now, when you talk about this identification, body identification, abhimana, what they call in Sanskrit, every jiva has 2 types of abhimana. One is samanya abhimanam, general abhimana, general identification, and one is vishesha abhimanam, a special identification. This samanya abhimanam is what? It is, why is it called samanyam? Because it is common to all jivas. The identification with the body is common not only to human beings, but to all living beings. And that gives rise to certain types of problems like hunger, physical pain, getting old, all these things. but this is common to all living beings. And this samanya abhimanam, remember, it is arising out of prarabdha. It cannot be removed through jnana. Important to remember, samanya abhimanam, the general identification with the body and the problems arising out of that, which are physical problems, hunger, pain, disease, getting old. These cannot be removed by jnana. But there is a unique identification called the Vishesha Abhimanam belonging to the human being. And this is the intellectual conclusions which we draw. Only the human being draws intellectual conclusions, right? For example, your dog gets old, your body also gets old. What is the difference? You worry about old age. Your dog does not worry about getting old. So, Samanya Abhimanam is there for both. You get old, your dog gets old. But Vishesha Abhimanam, worrying about getting old, is unique to you. The dog won't worry. So, this two things we have to understand very clearly. These intellectual conclusions which a human being draws, that is the cause of samsara. That is Jiva Srishti. Getting old is Ishvara Srishti. It is not Jiva Srishti. And then Shankara, he does a small summary of this verse and he says the all-pervading Nirguna Brahman, free from all attributes, is what we are talking about as I myself. That is why we say Atma, because the very word Atma in Sanskrit means what? Me, I. And therefore he says, Nyasta Ashesha Vishesha Vyapi Brahmatma, that all-pervading Nirguna Brahman, which is free from any attribute, Ashesha Vishesha, free from any attributes, that Brahman is what is being referred to whenever you say Atma. So Nirastha means free, Ashesha Vishesha means all attributes, free of all attributes, and hence Nirguna Brahman. Through such a knowledge, what knowledge? The knowledge that I am this all-pervading, attributeless Brahman. Through such a knowledge, all the knots of avidya are cut. And that person becomes Brahman, or regains or understands that he is Brahman, discovers that he is Brahman, even while he is alive. And therefore, after the death of his body, there is no more travel. This is the end of the formal teaching of the Kathopanishad. In the next verses, Yamaraj is summarizing the teaching, consolidating the teaching. So we will look at verse number 16. He says, Shatam cha eka cha. Shatam is 100 plus 1. Shatam cha eka plus 1. 101. What are they? Nadyaha. Are the nadis? Hridayasya nadyaha. There are 101 nadis of the heart. So, Shatam cha eka cha nadya hridayasya. There are 101 nadis in the heart. Tasam. Among those 101 nadis, eka abhinisrataha. One emerges out. Where murdhanam, through the crown of the head. And how do it go? Ayan urdhvam. It goes up. Taya. Through that, taya ayan urdhvam. Going up through that nadi, eti amritatvam. The jiva attains immortality. And anyaha vishvangaha. There are many more nadis. He said there are 101. One of them comes out through the crown, and the jiva who goes out through this nadi, he attains immortality. Anyaha vishvangaha. There are many other nadis which point in very many different directions. And utkramane bhavati. Anybody who goes through any of those other 100 nadis, excepting the one going through the head, you go out through any other nadi, utkramane bhavanti, you will get rebirth. So one of very few mantras in the Kathopanishad dealing with what we are familiar with in Yoga Shastra. What is this going out through the That single nadi, what is it called? We have seen it before.
Brahmarandra.
Brahmarandra, but what is the Brahmarandra is the opening in the top of the head. What is the nadi called?
Sahasra chakra.
No, Tanmay, you can't say anything. Okay. What is the nadi called, which is coming out through the head?
Sushumna.
Sushumna nadi. Okay. So he is saying that the one who goes out through Sushumna nadi, where does he go?
To
Brahmaloka.
Brahmaloka.
Who says?
Brahma Mukti.
Who said that? He goes
In the
through.
chapter,
Correct answer. Who?
It
chapter
was said
8.
earlier in Kathopanishad and also in Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, chapter
8.
8. So this is a reference to that chapter. Or other way around. That chapter is drawn from this mantra. You must remember that nothing in the Bhagavad Gita is original teaching. Everything is drawn from Upanishad alone. This is one of those things. And what is that mukti called? This also gives mukti. What is it called?
Krama Mukti.
Brahma Mukti.
Krama mukti. So essentially, the one who goes out through Sushmana Nadi, he goes to Brahma Loka. He goes there. He studies from Lord Brahmaji, and then he gets mukti. So that is what is being said here. So karma mukti is a result for karma and upasana, but not jnana. The person who has done a lot of karma mixed with a lot of upasana, lived a very religious life, he goes out through these nadis which are emerging from the heart and going to all parts of the body. He says out of these there is one nadi which goes out in the middle of the skull, and though Yamaraj doesn't say anything, in Shankaracharya's commentary he says the name of the nadi is Sushmana Nama. It's the Sushmana nadi. And what happens to this upasaka jiva? At the time of death, he should practice this upasana. He should invoke Vishvarupa Ishvara, right? Remember that at the time of his death, he is practicing detachment. Since he knows that his body is coming to an end, he hands over all responsibilities, including his family members, to Vishvarupa Ishvara. This is the Aham and Mama Tyagaha, the renunciation of Amahankara and Mamakara. And then through that Sushmana Nadi, what happens? The Sukshma Shariram along with the Karana Shariram, what is it called? The mixture of Sukshma and Karana? Guys, you are in Kathopanishad. What is the mixture of Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram called?
Taijasya.
Anybody can say, including Tanmay and Medha.
Jiva.
The Jiva. Why is it so difficult? Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram are Jiva only. Therefore, that Jiva, it travels through the Sushmana Nadi and attains Krava Mukti. Now, Yamaraj doesn't give any details at all. So, Shankara gives some details and very beautifully it gives. I'll give you both the Sanskrit and the English. He says, Tatha Antakale, therefore Antakale, at the time of Maranam, at the time of the death of the physical body, what does this Jiva do? Atmanam Vashikritya. So, Atmanam here is Sukshma Shariram. He withdraws the Sukshma Shariram, Atmanam Vashikritya. What does he do with it? All the Indriyas have to be withdrawn from all the Golakas and brought back to the heart. Why to the heart? Because all the nadis are emerging from the heart. And therefore, at the time of death, the nadis are the pathways through which all the Indriyas spread all over the body and make the body alive. So at the time of the death, all these Indriyas are withdrawn back from all these nadis and brought back to the main center, which is the heart. So Atmanam Vashikritya, having withdrawn the Sukshma Shariram, Hridaye Yojayet, he brings it back to the heart. All brought to the heart. Obviously, that means that prana should also be controlled and centered into the heart. So indirectly, he's saying one more thing. This meditator should not only be a great meditator, he has to be a very accomplished yogi also to do this. Because Yoga Shastra teaches you how to control the prana and bring it back. And therefore, what does he do? He brings back all the indriyas, all the indriyas through, which means all the indriyas meaning all the 17 indriyas, which is equal to Sukshma Shariram. So he brings back the Sukshma Shariram into the heart, back into the heart, withdrawing them from all the nadis, and then makes them travel through the Shushmana nadi and takes it upwards through the top of the crown, and then from there, you know the story. That's the story, right? What happens? How does it travel?
Like some devatas takes it step by step to the Brahma Loka.
Where does it first go? Surya Mandalam. All those details you will remember. You can't not remember. It passes Surya Mandalam, goes through, then the devatas come. All that story you remember. Now here remember, when you are saying all this, what are you conveying? Bring back all the, indriyas through all the nadis, bring it back to the heart, then make sure that they're all directed into one Sushumna nadi and then go upwards. Right? I don't know if anybody saw this movie Sholay. Did you see Sholay? In Sholay, there's a very great scene, where Amitabh Bachchan is glorifying Dharmendra to that old lady, because he wants that Dharmendra wants to marry the old lady's daughter. And Amitabh is glorifying. But in glorifying, he gives all the negative attributes. Do you remember?
Yes.
So that is the same thing here. You are giving all the descriptions to ensure that the difficulties are seen. And therefore, you will just give up this job because as a bad job. Who can do this Krama Mukti? I don't want to do. What is the idea here? Forget Krama Mukti. Focus on Jivan Mukti only. That is why these kind of descriptions are being given. Remember, even in Bhagavad Gita, the entire flow is on Jivan Mukti. Only one chapter, Krishna mentions Krama Mukti in passing. The idea is, Krama Mukti is possible but very difficult. And besides, how do you know whether you have enough punyam to go to Brahma Loka? So don't do that. Don't focus on something which you may or may not achieve. Focus on something which you can achieve, which is possible to achieve, and that is Jivan Mukti. That is the whole idea. And Shankara here comments upon Nityam, immortality. So he says there are two types of Nityam. Again, we have discussed this lots of times in the past, but since Shankara is commenting, I am again bringing it up. There is a apekshikam Nityam, relative immortality. What is a relative immortality? This person who attains Brahma Mukti, he goes to Brahma Loka. Okay. He doesn't go and study under Lord Brahmaji. He goes to Brahma Loka, but he decides to enjoy himself with all the enjoyments which he has. In Brahma Loka, when do you die? You die when the Brahma Loka itself perishes. So there is an inordinately long period as compared to the human life, but it is still finite. So this apekshikam here is a figurative usage. When you say Nityam, like when you get a government job, what do you say? I've got a permanent job, right? How permanent? You yourself are not permanent, What do you say? I've got a permanent job. So it's that kind of usage. It's a long thing compared to the normal human life. That is apekshikam. And so that means the person goes to Brahma Loka and lives a very long life, but at the end of it, he has to come back. That's what he means. The second one is Atyantikaha. So absolute moksha in the form of Krama Mukti, which means he goes to Brahma Loka, he goes and studies with Vedanta under Lord Brahmaji, and then Shankara says, Mukhyam Amritatvam Eti. He attains absolute immortality, when Brahmaloka Gatan, having gone to Brahmaloka, Anupaman Bhogan Bhuktva. Anupama means extraordinary. So Bhogan is pleasures. So Anupaman Bhogan Bhuktva, after having gone to Brahmaloka and enjoyed all the pleasures of Brahmaloka, in addition to that, he has gone and studied Vedanta under Lord Brahmaji, and therefore he gets Videha Mukti when Brahmanaha Saha Kalantarena. He gets Videha Mukti along with that Brahma, the Lord Brahmaji. When Lord Brahmaji dies and gets Videha Mukti, when Brahmaloka is destroyed, then he gets Videha Mukti, he gets total Mukti. So this is what is meant. There are two things which happen. Even if you manage to go to Brahmaloka, you can just have a wonderful life, a very, very long life full of pleasures, or you can be sensible. Shankara says very clearly, after having enjoyed the pleasures together with your study. It's a very clear indication to us. Don't have to not enjoy yourself in this world, but Vedantic study is very important. After that, you get me. And supposing a person does not do any of the things, what happens? So here Yamraj says, Anyaha Vishwangaha Bhavanti Utkramena. This will become the cause of rebirth. After that, the next birth will be determined by the fructifying karma and karma. Okay, but supposing there are people who come to Jnana Yoga and give up Ahankara and Mamakara, what will happen to him? This, the last teaching verse, Yamraj says in the 17th mantra, which we have read, so we'll go through it and see what it says. He says, Antar Atma Purushaha. The Purushaha, the Atma, which is within me, Angushta Matraha. Okay, now this is to be understood very carefully. Angushta Matra means size of a thumb. Matra is size, Angushtam is thumb. So Antaratma Purushaha Angushta Matraha is the size of a thumb. And Sada Sannivishtaha, that Atma, which is the size of a thumb, is always seated where? Hridaye, in the heart, Jananam, of all people. What should you do then? Tam Pravarahet. You should separate that Swat Sharirat. Your job is to Pravarahet. Separate that Atma. Swat Sharirat means from your own body. So separate that Atma from your own body. How? Dhairyena, with diligence, with understanding, with knowledge. And he gives an example. Eva Ishikam Munjat. Like separating the stalk from the Munja grass. Tam Vidyat, one should know that Atma is Shukram Amritam. Is Shukram pure, Amritam immortal. Tam Vidyat, one should know Shukram Amritam iti. That Atma to be pure and immortal. Okay. So there are some intelligent people, okay, who have understood Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekaha. But they are not interested in rebirth. They don't want to go on traveling in their lives. Because once travel starts, as long as you are alive, there is a human being, you are a human being, you have free will to operate, and so on and so forth. So you will go into Krishna Gati or Shukla Gati or Adho Gati. All these paths are open. But there are some people who don't want to do all that. They want this to be the final journey and they want to be free from all this travel. And this is something which is given to very few people. This is Jnanam, this is Moksha. This is being summarized by Yamraj over here. So he says, Antaratma Purushaha, the indwelling self, seemingly the size of a thumb. Now remember that Atma is, what is the size of Atma?
Everywhere. There is no size.
All pervading. And therefore, when you say that Angushta Matram, the size of a thumb, what does it mean? How do you understand that statement? Because there are many people who literally take this statement and say the Atma is size of a thumb and it sits in the heart. How do you understand that?
In the Jiva, the essence is the size of a thumb in the heart. I mean,
Anybody else?
a form of
It can be
localization.
taken in two things.
Arsi?
One is
Go ahead.
it's for visualization purpose, and the other is to say it's as small as the smallest thing and as big as the biggest.
Anybody else?
Acharya, you had explained it earlier on in the Kathopanishad itself.
Yeah.
And the space within the heart is the size of a thumb. And
Simple.
then-
What is the heart? When we say size of the heart, what is it? It is the size of a fist.
The Golakam.
The heart is the size of a fist, right? What is the space inside the heart? The size of a thumb. That's all that it means. Okay, it doesn't mean Atma is the size of a thumb. Remember, this Atma is available in the heart. And because the available space in the heart is the size of a thumb, he says, Angushta Matra Purusha. You have to understand this and assimilate this, because you will come across this many times, and some people who subscribe to different philosophies may confuse you with this. They'll say that, Kathopanishad itself says Atma is size of a thumb. So this is how you understand. And where is it available? Hridaya Sannivishtaha, in the heart. Whose heart? Jananam, of all living beings. Each word is very important. And when is this Atma available? Sada, always. So the Atma is available in the heart of all beings and is always available. It is self-evident Atma. There is not a single moment of your life when Atma is not self-evident. And therefore, what should you do? Tam pravrahe, one should separate the Atma from the Anatma. Swat Sarirat, separate the Atma from Swat, one's own Shariram, which is what? Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Shariram. The separation is not a physical task. The separation is a cognitive task. And the example we give is that we look at the moonlight and say that moonlight is not separate from the sun. It is a cognition. That separation is in your mind, is in your intellect. Okay, that is how it is done. So Jivatma, therefore, is on the body, but is not of the body. Jivatma is nothing but Paramatma. And whenever we use the word Jivatma, as Vedantic students, we should understand that the word Jivatma is not separate from Atma. This is the understanding, the pravrit, the separation. And it doesn't come in one sitting. It doesn't come because you have just read one mantra. It requires long shravanam, long years of mananam, and even longer nididhyasana. And how is the separation to be done? He gives an example. He says, what does he say? Munjat eva ishika. So there's a grass called munja grass. Okay, it's a very grass with a very sharp edge. And if you are not careful when you run your hand along the grass, you can cut yourself. And you have to remove the inner stalk of the grass. But the internal kernel of the grass you have to remove. And therefore, when one removes the kernel from that grass, right, so ishikam, you are removing that kernel. How do you do it? You do it very, very carefully so that your finger doesn't get cut. So the body of yours is like the grass. The Atma is like the inner kernel. Munja grass is used in a very famous ceremony, What ceremony? In fact, is used in two very famous ceremonies. One is Upanayanam ceremony. What is Upanayanam ceremony?
Yagnopavit, sacred thread.
Yeah, what does it mean? What is the significance of tying the sacred thread?
Entering brahmacharya.
All of you all know the words, but what is the significance? You should know, no? Upanayanam. Upanayanam. It makes him eligible to sit close. Upa is close.
Yes.
Sit close to what? Sit close to his mother or father?
The Guru,
The Guru.
to the Guru to
And therefore,
learn.
Upanayanam is that ceremony which makes the boy eligible for Vaidika karma. To do Vaidika karma, he has to be taught the Dharma Shastra, the Veda Purva. Therefore, it is necessary before we can start learning Veda Purva and doing Vaidika karma. That same munja grass is used for the girl also when girls don't have Upanayanam. These are all by the way, okay? I thought interesting tidbits to share. When does the girl use munja grass? She uses it during a wedding ceremony. Because it is the wedding which makes the girl eligible for Vaidika karma. Right? No, right or wrong, I am not saying. This is what the Shastram says. When the Upanayanam is done, the boy is eligible for Vaidika karma. The girl is not eligible until such time as she gets married. Once she gets married, she is an integral part of the Vedic ceremonies. Without her, the man cannot go ahead at all. She is the one who gives the permission. Every permission for starting the ceremony has to be given by her. For ending the ceremony has to be given by her. Very important place in the life. Okay, anyway, that was by the way. So, dhairyena, very, very carefully, without cutting, you have to extract that Atma from the three bodies. And Shankara says, what kind of Atma? Chinmatram. That pure consciousness has to be extracted. Extracted means understood to be different from your three bodies. Therefore, tam vidyat, you should know. You should know that the separated Jivatma without the body-mind complex is you. This you should know. And what kind of Jivatma is that? Shukram Amritam. Shukram is pure, Amritam is immortal. That pure, immortal Atma, which you have separated through this process of knowledge, may you claim that Atma as yourself. May you claim Aham Brahma Asmi. And whoever gains this knowledge will not have any travel post gaining the knowledge. Jivatma does not merge into Paramatma. Jivatma continues to be the Paramatma which it has always been. You drop the prefixes Jiva and Parama and you simply remain as Atma. And the last sentence is repeated again. Tam vidya chukram amritam, tam vidya chukram amritam iti. Meaning that the teaching has been completed. The iti indicates the full stop. Okay. And we go to the last verse. Last mantra. See the, what is it called? Habitual thinking practices. I keep saying verse, even though I know it is mantra. Okay. So one should always get this. It is not a verse, it's a mantra. So the last mantra, Nachiketaha, Nachiketas, Kritsnam Labdhva. Kritsnam means completely, Labdhva means gained, completely gained. Etam Vidyam, this knowledge he gained. Not only that, Cha Yoga Vidhim, along with the method of yoga, Mrityu Proktam, which was taught by Lord Mrityu, Lord Yama, Athaha, thus Brahma Praptaha, having attained Brahman, Abhud Virajaha, he became pure, Vimrityaha, he became immortal. That's one sentence. And the last one is Anya Api Eva, not only Nachiketas. We are saying, Yamraj is saying that, not Yamraj, okay, this is the, who is saying this? This is the Shruti saying it. This is the Upanishad saying, because Yamraj's teaching is over with iti, the last mantra. The Shruti is now saying that in this manner, Nachiketas acquired the teaching from Lord Yama and became Brahman. He became pure, he became immortal. Not only that, Anya api eva, anyone else too, ya evam vida adhyatmam, who knows the Atma in the same manner, through the same teaching, also will become Brahman, pure and immortal. Iti Tritiya Vallihi. When this Kathopanishad is over, we have done something like, how many class? 7 months. 28 classes. Tanmay is very happy because she's going away. She's finished Kathopanishad. Tanmay?
Yes, Acharya, and then you're now going to take a 5-week break and then start the next Upanishad after that.
Aha. Okay. Any questions, anybody?
Om Raviji,
Yeah,
in
Vinay.
which chapter is this described about the jiva leaving and what happens at every stage? I have not done that chapter in the Gita. So I'm asking.
Chapter 8. You'll have to wait.
Oh,
Chapter
yeah.
8 doesn't have the details, okay? It's extracting from this mantra. But the full details, if you want, the exact stages and all that, there are very many other Upanishads which talk about it. And there is, of course, the Brahma Sutra, which none of us have done, which talks about it. The Brahma Sutra actually takes this particular chapter of Gita and analyzes in great detail what is the stage, every stage of the journey. But I will still say that you should not focus on that at all, because we are not
Yes.
looking for karma mukti.
Right.
So it's just, by the way, the information is there, but we should be focusing on Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti is the clear understanding that I am Brahman. I mean, there is nothing
Yes.
else. You don't need to do anything at all. No sadhana is required.
Yes.
You have to keep on studying until the day when you realize that all your studying has been a waste. Why has it been a waste? Because you have gained nothing.
Yeah.
You were Brahman and you are still Brahman. What is the use of 15 years of study and 10 years of Nididhyasanam? Total waste.
Acharya, I have a question.
Yes, please.
It was in the 15th mantra where
Yeah.
you mentioned the 2 types of abhimana,
Yeah,
Samanya abhimana and Vishesha abhimana.
yeah,
Samanya abhimana is the general identification that everybody has with the body, Deha abhimana, I guess.
correct.
I did not completely understand Vishesha abhimana.
Vishesha Abhimana is the conclusion that you draw from your experiences, right? Like if, for example, a dog gets kicked by its master, it has physical pain, and then it goes away. The dog disappears and comes back after some time to the master. It doesn't keep it in mind. But if I get kicked by somebody, I draw a conclusion that this fellow doesn't like me. Maybe there is something wrong with me. That conclusion is Vishesha Abhimana. That is the cause of samsara. Physical pain is never the cause of samsara because it arises out of prarabdha. It is always the mental pain associated with making conclusions, coming to conclusions that I am not infinite, I am maybe not a good person, I am not a bad person. This is the cause of samsara. That is specific to human beings. No dog concludes that it's, why am I getting old? What is the Lord making me old for? All those things. No, he just accepts. As a jnani, you become that dog. You accept without trying to conclude anything.
This is actually a very important statement that you just made. I did not come to this conclusion I didn't understand actually the Vishesha Abhimana. But that makes complete sense why it is only the human being also who can attain moksha, because it is.
Yes, because he is the only one who can think in this manner.
And also, you just said that no animal, there is no samsara perhaps from the animal's point of view.
There is no samsara because he is basically meant to experience the karma phalam, the bad karma phalam of his, or maybe some good karma phalam also, in case he's, taken.
No, their sthul sharir, sukshma sharir is not satkarma janya.
It's not satkarma janya. It is bad karma, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yours is also not satkarma janya fully.
Fully, yeah.
Yours is 50%, 50%.
Mishrit.
Om Acharya.
Yes, John.
I have 2 questions today.
Yeah.
The first one is we mentioned that the knots in the heart are in the form of virya, and we say 3 words, Hamidam Shariram. Sukhi Dukhi Aham, and what was that last one?
See, simpler way to say it is ahankara mamakara,
Okay.
which means that me, ahankara is my body, my mind. Your complete identification with my body, my mind, which means that you are saying I am my body, I am the body, I am the mind. That is ahankara.
Mm-hmm.
And mamakara is you are saying this is my family, this is my possession, this is my profession.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said 5. Family, possession, profession, body, mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
secondly, when we use the example of the muja,
Jagras.
Yamaraja uses this example just to emphasize that we should be very careful when using knowledge.
We should be careful, very carefully separate Atma from Anatma.
Okay.
You know, the problem is that whenever you look at RC, it is a mixture of OC and RM. Right? OC is the Atma, RM is the Anatma. You do not come across any situation where RC exists independent of these two.
Mm-hmm.
That is why when you say I, you think you mean the body and the mind, but you think you mean the body, the mind, and the reflected consciousness. Because all three are innately non-separatable. That is why he says, take extra care. Mentally segregate that I am the OC and this body is not me, and therefore the RC is also not me. Even though it is the RC who says that I am the OC.
Mm-hmm.
You understand how difficult it is?
Yes.
You are using a reflection to arrive at the conclusion that there is an original light. It is only the RC which can conclude that. The OC has no concluding power. And therefore, RC has to understand, using the intellect, that really speaking, I am a fictitious entity. The original entity is OC. That is what makes the whole thing so difficult to understand. And that is why we say it takes a long, prolonged period of study before you can really draw the conclusion.
Thank you, Acharya, and thank you for finishing this Upanishad with us.
Okay, great. So with that, there are no more questions. Oh, Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya.
Thank you.